Hey y'all, it's Amanda and this is my Texas Zone 8 garden, and today we're going to be doing a March garden recap and talking about all my garden goals for April. So I started this new thing where I'm doing a tour at the very beginning, a garden tour at the very beginning of each month. And then the next day I'm doing a recap. I'm talking about what I did the last month, what my goals were, what did I accomplish, what did I not get done, and then also talking about my goals for the next month, and this month it'll be April. And the reason I started doing that is I found a lot of people commenting that they are growing or gardening along beside me, and I thought it would be better to kind of review what we did and then talk about the future, because I think it's going to help you all plan better, just the way it helps me plan. If you're always just waiting for the video to come out the next day and you know what it is, this helps a little bit in the way that you can have a general idea of what I'm going to be doing that month, so you can make preparations to do that if you want it as well. I feel like that was super wordy. I hope you guys checked out the garden tour video that went out yesterday. So keep that in mind, and we do the garden tour so that you have an idea of where my garden is at this exact point, and then it makes it easier going forward for the recap. Okay, I want to start with my top 3 videos from March. The number 3 video was spring garden planting in the front yard. It's kind of funny because I want to go back and look and watch my video and be like, what could I have changed on that? So basically for this video, that was my first foray into getting out in the garden and starting to do a cleanup from the winter. So I really just touched on pruning perennials, fertilizing, adding in some new annuals and other plants in that space. And I also talked about how I section out my garden into specific spaces so I don't feel overwhelmed when I'm working on it. I also really like that video because during that video, I didn't just rip out everything from the winter. I left all my pansies and violas and I started combining in additional spring annuals so that I have a layering effect with my flowers, so I don't just have a hard stop of each individual season of flowers. The goal is for them to layer in, for one to take over as the other one is dying back. That's the ultimate goal, in my opinion, for my garden. Okay, the number 2 most popular one was when to prune perennials for spring. Pruning perennials, transplanting, and fertilizing, and this went along with all of the same stuff. It's obvious that a lot of y'all are either out in your spring gardens getting started, or the rest of you guys who are in colder zones are itching to get out there. So once again, this just is me going through plant by plant in specific portions of my garden, talking about what I'm pruning back, why, how I'm doing it, adding fertilizer, just talking through each of the individual plants. Even though that this kind of seems like redundant to go through each of the plants, I think it's extremely helpful to a lot of people because we don't all have the same plants in our garden. And so seeing some different varieties and what I'm doing may make it easier for you to go ahead and figure out what you need to do for your spring garden. I will say I think one of the most important things you can do in your spring garden is fertilize. And I think that's an area that a lot of people miss. I just take my plant tone, my general plant tone, and I toss a handful of that underneath perennials or shrubs or whatever, and I scrub it into the earth, and it works great. I don't do anything super specific other than that, but it is amazing how much that helps, benefit the plant, but also benefit in making my soil a better soil. Okay, and then my number 1 most popular one for video for the month of March was new perennials in the spring garden. And this was me going over to the side. And I thought it was interesting that this one was so popular because this video was the least dynamic. I didn't have a lot of flowers or stuff blooming in that particular area that I was working on in the side garden. So it was really interesting that this ended up being a popular video, but that also tells me that you guys aren't just interested in pretty. You guys are interested in how things are happening, which is really cool. So I talked about, I moved some perennials around. I planted some new perennials. We fertilized. I trimmed my boxwoods back, showed y'all how I did that. And then we added some other annuals that I'd grown from seed. So definitely the 3 most popular videos in the month of March, all spring garden cleanup and planting, which is really fun. Okay, and then my favorite video from this month, I don't think it's because I personally like this video so much. I think it's that I liked the project I was working on, and I did my first spring container, which was really, really fun. I fall for buying the delphinium every year in the store. Even though I grew all my own delphinium, I fall for buying the delphinium that's already blooming and, you know, it only lasts a couple of weeks, and planted it up in my spring, my first spring container. But I love it. It brings me a lot of joy. So what I did is I took a container in my front yard. I cleaned it out from some of its winter plants, left some of the winter plants in there, and then added some more spring plants and some additional plants that will get me into summer. So the goal with that planter is that it was going to scale multiple months instead of just like a short amount of time, except for the delphiniums. They're already done. They're already done. The other stuff is starting doing really, really well, but the delphiniums, they're definitely done. Okay, so let's talk about my March goals. So in the March recap, or excuse me, in the February recap, I talked about what my March goals were going to be. So let's go through those. I think there's five goals. Let's go through those goals and see if I accomplished them or not. So the first one was transplanting seedlings into the garden. And I would definitely say I got at least a 75 on doing that. I still have a lot of seedlings that need to go in the garden. Like a lot. But I grew hundreds and hundreds of seedlings this year, and I have just been getting them out. You haven't seen those videos yet. Those are the videos that you're pretty much going to see for like the next week and a half, is me planting like crazy. And so you're about to see a whole bunch of them that are going in. So yeah, I definitely got a lot of my seedlings transplanted outside. It's really good because it gives me an opportunity to observe the soil that I'm planting them in, and it gives me an opportunity to fertilize those areas, check my drip lines, and then of course, all these flowers, a lot of these seedlings I'm putting out are actually seedlings that are going to be blooming late spring, early summer. So it's really exciting to be able to get those outside already. And I grew them from seed. So that's very exciting, far less expensive on my garden budget for this season. Okay, the next goal was the back porch clean out. And I had a whole bunch of stuff on my back porch where I brought in a lot of pots and containers, and I had overwintered them because I prefer terracotta containers. And terracotta containers don't do well with freezing temps. The water gets in them, it expands when it freezes, and it cracks the terracotta. So it's a problem. So a lot of times I have to bring all of mine under the back porch, which is, it's hard. And it's hard to move that stuff. But I love the terracotta pots so much that I just do it anyway. So I needed to clean a bunch of that off, and I did accomplish that. However, I've now put a bunch of other stuff onto the back porch. The back porch is all messy once again, but that's kind of who I am as a gardener. I'm kind of a messy gardener. So I do a project and I just leave all my stuff from the project there. I'm not very good at like cleaning it up afterwards. Definitely something I need to improve on. So I did clean it up. So I give myself I guess I'd give myself a 50 on cleaning up the back porch, because I did clean it up, but then I got it all messy again. So I'm right back to square one for this month. The next one was stain and decorate the shade garden entrance and to hang the crystals in it. I got a 0. I failed that one big time. I did not get to that at all. The spring has had me so busy with planting that I just haven't had time to deal with the entrance. I actually think the entrance is going to get bumped off to perhaps June or July. Yes, during the hottest times of the year. It's ridiculous. But that's when I'm actually not doing as much gardening. So that's a good opportunity for me to do projects, even if I can only do a little bit of it a day with the heat. So I think that project is definitely going to get bumped off for a while. Even though I'm a little disappointed, it's still going to be fine. Like there's so many other things I want to accomplish in the garden that need to be done right this moment. So the shade garden entrance will just have to wait for now. Okay, number 4 is to mulch some of the grass areas to put containers on. So I have some drainage problems in different portions of my yard. I'm not a fan of all the grass in the backyard. I don't enjoy it very much. So I have some areas where I'm going to be laying down landscape fabric, like the really heavy duty landscape fabric, and then mulching over it, and then displaying my containers in that area. I did not get to any of that. I did purchase all the materials that I need to do that project, but haven't gotten to that point. It is going to be a pretty labor intensive project. I definitely think I'm going to have to get my husband and my kids to help me out The issue with that is we're all very busy. So my boys play baseball and they're in scouts, and my daughter is in winter guard and band, and we just do all of the things. And so we are a very busy family. So I'll just have to see if I can locate a time for us to help out, for all of them to help me out on that project. But that project's going to have to wait a little bit. However, it is a project that needs to be done pretty quickly. Okay, and then the last goal for March was to explain my garden journal in Planner, and I did a video on that, which was really exciting, and just showed you how I go about like writing all my information and recording all my info in my journal. And then I also showed that my sister Elisa, with the Scrappy Wife, she created some custom inserts for garden journaling for me, and I shared that with you all as well. So I got 100 on that particular goal. Okay, so we've gone through those March goals. So now let's talk about what my April goals are going to be. And you can tell I sit down and I write out some of my goals. Now, these goals are not hard and fast. Like, I don't like regulate myself to only these goals, because truthfully, when I'm out in the garden, it's such a journey. And sometimes you don't realize where one project's going to take you, or you're going to discover something that needs to be dealt with, or your budget's harder hit one month, so you have to scale back what your plans were. There's all these things that happen. So I do have a lot of flexibility in my goals, but having them written down for each month is really great, because it allows me to refer to them during the month, and then it allows me to evaluate myself. And like, I gave myself some sad scores. Like, I got a 0 all the way to 100. That's okay. I'm not disappointed in a 0. It's fine. It is what it is. I accomplished other stuff, so it's not a problem at all. But let's talk about the April goals. So the first major goal is to mulch the grass areas for containers. So that is a big one, because right now my containers are just strewn everywhere, and they really need to be kind of allocated to a few spaces. I need to be able to set up drip to these containers before it starts to get too hot and before our rainfall starts to die off. I really need to get those containers set up and going. A lot of those containers have perennials in them or roses in them. So they need to get out into full sun. They need to get drip to them so they have consistent watering, and they just need to be set up in a way that's going to allow for better flow throughout my garden. Next is to take down the greenhouse and finish planting seedlings. So I'm done with the greenhouse. It is too hot now in my area. The greenhouse is just like a hothouse now. And so I need to go ahead and take that down, pull out all those seedlings, and I need to plant like there's no tomorrow on seedlings. I've got Iberis, which is almost bloomed out for the spring, but it's a perennial, so I'll go ahead and get it all planted, and then we'll be good for next spring. I've got Coleus. I've got, oh my gosh, tomatoes and peppers and eggplant. I'm actually going to be planting a bunch of those tomorrow, so you'll see those in a future video. I've got clematis. I've got caladiums. I've got calla lilies. I've got so many different things that need to get planted out. So that is a really big goal. Get all that stuff planted, get that greenhouse down and out of the way. I am planning a future garden in the space where the greenhouse is. I don't think that I'm going to be able to accomplish that this month, but we'll see. The third goal is to finish the spring garden cleanup. So I'm almost done with that. I've made it all the way around the front yard, almost all the way down the side garden. I have one section of the side garden left. And then I have one major section of the backyard left, which is the heirloom chrysanthemum area that needs to be cleaned up. And so once that's done, that'll be great. I've gone through every, area of my major garden beds, evaluated it, checked it out, got it cleaned up, fertilized, ready to go for the year. Very important. So I'm excited to knock that out. My fourth goal is to get the front porch ready for spring. So I decorate my front porch for different seasons. And so the spring, I typically do it a lot earlier than I did this year, but I was so involved with the garden that I wasn't really focused on working on the porch. But now I'm ready. I'm ready to do the porch. I'm going to be using a lot of the coleus that I grew myself from seed. I'm going to be using some begonias that I grew from seed. I purchased my own, some additional begonias, some impatiens, and some fuchsia. Lots of shade plants for the front garden. So I'm going to be getting all those planted in. There's not going to be tons of decorating. There's just going to be some beautiful elements that I'm going to put in there so that I can, have this beautiful space that I love to go sit and talk with y'all. I like to film out on the front porch, but my husband and I love to have have, like when he gets home from work, we love to have a beer out on the front porch and talk about our days and enjoy that time together. So that is another big goal to get done in the month of April. And then finally, my other big goal for April, number 5, is to start seeds for summer blooms, specifically zinnias and sunflowers. And I'll be doing that in a couple different ways. I've already got some sunflowers sown, and you'll see that in a video coming up real soon. It's a, I'm sowing the Sunflower Steve's sunflowers, the Van Gogh Fantasy Mix, and I'm doing a giveaway for that in that video. So keep an eye out for that video coming out soon, because I am giving away some of Sunflower Steve's seeds. But so I've already gotten some planted out, but I'm going to be doing direct sow, and I'm going to be starting some seedlings inside. So I'm going to be doing that in both ways so that you guys can see that process. Zinnias, I think, work really well for starting inside and then planting outside. Sunflowers, not so much. I think they do better with direct sow, but we'll discuss that in a future video. But I do want to go ahead and get that kind of going so that I do have some succession planting going for summer blooms. I also have tons of bulbs. Like, I got to get lilies and gladiolas. That's the goal. We got to get the lilies and gladiolas going. So that will be on some future videos in April as well. So we're going to be succession planting the gladiolas. The lilies are just going to go in. They're not succession planting. I have one more raised bed area that I haven't worked on. That's where all the lilies are going. So I'm really excited to get going on that. Okay, so I hope you guys have enjoyed this kind of recap of March, seeing what I accomplished, what I didn't accomplish, and then what my plans are for the month of April. I highly suggest, even if you're just like jotting it down on your phone or writing it down or whatever, I highly suggest taking a few moments just to set up a couple of goals for yourself for gardening. It doesn't have to be anything extensive. It doesn't have to be a massive project. It can just be something like, I would like to be in my garden, 2 hours a week, or whatever. Or I want to make sure I walk through my garden every 5 days. I want to make sure I'm walking through my garden or having my coffee in the garden or enjoying the space. It doesn't have to be like this big, massive goal, but give yourself some goals regarding, if you're going to, some things you'd like to accomplish, but also not just like productive accomplishment. You can do things for mental health and peace and things like that are within your garden. So definitely take the time to set that up for yourself. You'll feel really good doing it, especially when you see that you've achieved them. Now, if you don't achieve your goals, it's okay. Nobody's grading you. I'm grading myself. I'm not grading you. Nobody's grading you out there. If you didn't accomplish your goal, it's fine. It's totally fine. It's your garden. You need to work at your own pace and do what's best for yourself and your space. I get a lot of people who will drop comments and be like, no, you did this the wrong way, or this is the way you have to do such and such. And if you haven't been watching my channel for very long, I am a firm believer, or I'm a big believer of not having hard, fast rules, because each of us are very different and each of us have very different spaces. And even though you might be in a zone 8 here, it's completely different from even somebody's zone 8 across town from me, right? Because we have microclimates and we have different drainage issues and our soils are different. I mean, there's just so many different things. And so a lot of times, people will be like, well, I thought that you had to do this. And I'm like, yes, you can totally do that way. And if that's what works for you, you should do that way. But this worked for me, and that's fine. It works great for me, but you can totally do it however the other way is that you wanted. And I do think of gardening, especially now as we're all starting to communicate more on social media. I feel like it's just growing and evolving, and we're learning and we're sharing and we're spreading so much information, which is really, really exciting, because we're only going to get better together. Like, we're only going to get better the more information that we're sharing with each other and the more we're kind of learning from one another. So, I mean, I definitely get comments all the time that are like, you did that wrong. I'm like, okay. I mean, it's fine if you want to say that, or you can say it nicely and be like, hey, I've done this before and it worked out well for me. Have you considered that? That would be a really nice way to say something. I'm always looking for, like, I'll take criticism all day long as it is put in a not kind and respectful way. Like, that's what I'm here for. Y'all probably don't see a lot of the comments. I delete any comments that are unkind or borderline unkind or sarcastic or rude, I delete all of them because first of all, I don't want to read them. Secondly, I don't want y'all to read them. Like typically when you're watching these videos, you're coming for the joy of gardening, right? You don't need to read somebody's, unkind, angry, bad day comment. So I delete those too. It makes me feel better. It makes me feel better going through the feed. And I just think it works better. So if you're going to write some criticism, absolutely do it. Just do it with a kind voice. I really would appreciate that. Okay, I would love to hear what your goals are for the month of April. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you're planning on doing. I know a lot of my colder zone people, this is it. April into May is your time. Spring will be there for you. And you probably have some massive goals coming up. So I would love to hear all about them. And then if you're in the warmer climates like me, tell me what your plans are. What have you accomplished that you're really proud of? What are your goals going forward? Are you already planning for summer? Because truthfully, I'm only about maybe 6 weeks away from like upper 90-degree temps because that's how we roll in Texas Zone 8 in this area. All right, you all, as always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Every time you like and comment, it helps grow my channel so much. And I just really look forward to your comments each day. And make sure you check me out on my social media outlets, including Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. As always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.